And welcome to Unit 1, Notes 3E, where we're going to be talking about graphing lines. So the first thing you want to do when you're graphing lines is to identify the b or the y-intercept. So when we're talking about slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, that is the one that's being added on at the end. That's where you're crossing the y-axis. Okay, and after that you're going to graph it on the y-axis. Now remember that the y-axis is the one that goes up and down. So after you've done that, you're going to use the slope. Remember, the slope is what's being multiplied by the x, and that's going to be your rise over run. So you're going to go up however many and over however many. Okay, so for example, if you had the slope 2/3, you would go up 2 and over 3, and that would give you to your next point. Once you have 2 points, you've formed a line, and then you can use a straight edge, the side of a piece of paper, or something like that to draw your straight line across. Okay, let's take a look at this first problem. So the first thing we want to do for this one is we want to go ahead and we're going to plot our y-intercept. So first we need to figure out what that is. So we want to figure out what our y-intercept is. So remember, the y-intercept is the thing that's being added on at the end. So this 3 represents where I'm crossing the y-axis. Now we'll go about plotting it in a second. Next I want to find my slope. Now remember, my slope is being multiplied by the x. So that's this guy right here, which is a -2/3. So now I'm going to go ahead and plot this. So I need to plot 3 on the y-axis. So I'm going to look at this axis right here. And I want to find 3 on it. So from 0, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. And that's that point right there. Okay? Lost my pen here. Just give me 1 second. All right, we're back in business. Thanks for being patient. Okay, so next thing we want to do is we want to plot that 3 on the graph. So we're crossing the y-axis at 3. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to go over. So then we need to use our slope. Now our slope is negative, which tells me that I need to go down 2 and over 3. So that's what I did right there. I went down 2 and over 3. Now I can go ahead and I can connect those 2 points into a straight line. And now I have my line graphed. Let's take a look at the next one. So we want to first find our y-intercept, which again is going to be that thing multiplied at the end, and that's going to be -6. So our y-intercept is at -6. Our slope is then being multiplied by the x. So our slope then is 1/4. So let's start by plotting our y-intercept. So we're crossing the graph at -6. So that's down here. Remember, that's always on the y-axis, which is the vertical axis. And then our slope is 1/4, which is we want to use rise over run. So we're going to go up 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4, which is here. So I went up 1 over 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect those 2 points. And then after that, I've safely graphed a line. Let's take a look at the next one. So for this one, it doesn't give us the slope. It gives us the slope and the y-intercept. So technically, we could graph it right there. But let's put it into slope-intercept form just for practice. So we have y is equal to mx plus b. Remember that m represents your slope and b represents your y-intercept. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in. So y is equal to 3x plus a -5. That's what slope-intercept form would look like. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out where we're crossing the y-axis, and that's at -5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plot -5 on my graph. And then for my slope is 3. Well, remember that 3 is the same as 3 over 1, which is the same as going up 3 and over 1. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go up 3 and over 1. And I'm going to plot that point. So those are the 2 points I'm connecting. So I'm going to go ahead and connect those 2 points. As you can see, it's not very easy to draw a straight line. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and use a straight edge so that yours looks a lot better than mine does. So I want you to take a look at number 4 on your own. I want you to graph it on your own, but just for practice sake, let's put it into that slope-intercept form. So for slope-intercept form, we have y is equal to mx plus b. Well, my m is going to be -2, so I can plug that in. Y is equal to -2x. And then we want to plug in our b, which is 2. So y is equal to -2x plus 2. I want you to go ahead and graph that equation. Remember, you want to do it because I will be checking that you've done all of these before we move on. All right, let's take a look at graphing in point-slope form. So when you're graphing in point-slope form, remember that's the one that kind of looks like a puzzle. So that's the one where it looks kind of like this. And so you want to kind of solve that puzzle. All right, so it's going to look kind of like that. That's point-slope form. And what you're going to do to graph it is you're going to solve for y. Whenever you want to get something into slope-intercept form, you solve for y. And that's exactly what you're going to do on here. Okay, so once you've done that, you can go back to what we were previously doing to graph your problem. Well, let's take a look at number 5. So for number 5, it's in point-slope form for us. We don't have to actually put it in the puzzle. All we have to do is solve it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at that. So I'm going to solve this equation right here for y. So I have y minus 3 is equal to 2 times x plus 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute that 2 in. So then I get y minus 3 is equal to 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 1 is 2. Last thing I need to do is get that y by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So then I get y, because those cancel, is equal to 2x, and then you're going to add 2 plus 3, and you get 5. So you get that y is equal to 2x plus 5. So let's go ahead and plot that. If we have that plus 5, that means that 5 is going to be our y-intercept. That's where we're crossing the y-axis. So I find 5 on the y-axis. Then I see that I have a slope of 2. Well, I have a problem here. If I go up 2 and over 1, I'm off the graph. Well, we've known back in mathematics that 2 negatives can make a positive. We've talked about with slope that down is negative and left is negative. Well, if two negatives make a positive, we could also go down and left, and that would still be going up. Let me show you. So I'm going to go down 2, left 1. And I'm going to connect these 2 points right here. So what you notice when you connect those 2 points is that my line is still positive even though I went down because I went left, and 2 negatives are going to equal a positive. So that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at number 6. That's going to make us do a little bit difficult solving. So the first thing I want to do to solve that, so I have y plus 4 is equal to 1/2 times x minus, and to make this a little bit easier on ourselves, I want everybody to change that to a 4. Let's change that to a 4 to make it a little bit simpler on us. So the first thing we want to do is distribute in that 1/2. So then I have y plus 4 is equal to 1/2 x, and then we have 1/2 times a negative 4. Now we've talked about how 1/2 is really the same as dividing by 2. So here you have 4 divided by 2. So I'm going to look at that as being minus 2. Last thing we need to do is solve for y. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6 from both sides. And then I get that y is equal to 1/2 x minus 8. So let's go ahead and graph that. Well, we don't have minus 8 on our graph, so we run into a problem. Even though it's numbered, we can still change the scale. So what I'm going to say is that each of these squares represents 2. I'm going to say that each of those squares represents 2, and then I'm going to graph it. So for negative 8, I'm going to go down 2, 4, 6, 8. So this right here represents negative 8. Now my slope is a positive 1 over 2. So that means I'm going to go up 1 and over 2 and plot that point. Once I have 2 points, I can go ahead and I can connect the dots. Remember, if at any point you feel like I'm going too fast for you, feel free to rewind it and watch it again, or come up and have me help you since I'm here anyway. If I'm not working with another student, I'm more than happy to work with you right now. Okay, so let's take a look at graphing lines in standard form. So the first thing I want you to do for this is just to solve the equation for y. Just like we did in point-slope form, you need to solve the equation for y. Once you've done that, you can follow the steps to graph it in slope-intercept form. Remember, once you solve something for y, it is considered in slope-intercept form, which is great. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at what this would look like in a problem. So number 7 is in standard form. We, however, need to put it into slope-intercept form. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to move this down and we're going to solve it. So here we had 4x plus 2y is equal to 8, and we need to solve that for x. For y. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to get that x to the other side. Well, that's a positive 4x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract it from both sides. And then I'm left with 2y is equal to negative 4x plus 8. Now, I like to write my x first because that makes it look like slope-intercept form when I write my x first. The last thing I need to do is get that y by itself. Since that 2 is being multiplied by y, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And when I do that, I get y is equal to negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2x. But I also have to remember to divide that 8 by 2 as well. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So now here is the line I'm going to be graphing. Y is equal to negative 2x plus 4. So we've been working with this long enough to know that we're crossing the y-axis at 4. So we're crossing the y-axis at 4. And then my slope was negative 2. Now remember that negative 2 is the same as negative 2 over 1. So I'm going down 2 and over 1. Once I have two lines, I can connect it to make a straight line. Now I'm going to have you guys try number 8 on your own. So here are some tips. You want to solve for y. So start by getting that 6x over to the other side. Once you do that, figure out how am I going to get rid of that negative 3. You're going to have to do some dividing and then go ahead and graph it, all right? So I want you to do that and then show me your completed note sheet when you're done and I will give you your homework. Thanks for listening.